I just wanted to talk to you a little bit today about the USA, what it means. United States of America is a country that was founded on the idea that it's several states. What the meaning of the word several means is that they're separate states, but they're united. The United States of America. Some people don't even realize that the word state means a country or a nation. And people who grew up in the United States tend to think of state as meaning the same thing that the word province means in a lot of countries. And essentially, what we have evolved into is one nation with several provinces. That are just called states. It's mainly a matter of the meaning of the word changing over time. But the fact remains that we were intended to be a nation of many states that can come together and act as one if there's need to. That was the intention of the creation of the federal government. When the Constitution was written, it was written to create the federal government. And the intention is pretty clear if you read that document, that the federal government is there as almost a last resort. But we've seen what it's become, and what the federal government has turned into is, Adam Kokesh called it a bully, and I guess that's a pretty good word for it. They come up with legislation, and they force the states to follow it. People don't even realize there are three branches of the federal government: the legislative, the administrative, and the judicial branches, right? They're all supposed to check and balance one another. Legislation is passed by the legislative branch. It's enforced by the administrative branch or the executive branch. And if it's unconstitutional, then someone who feels that it is against the Constitution for that law to be in place will take it to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, if they decide that it's unconstitutional, will say this law is moot. We need to get rid of this law. It's unconstitutional. And but there is a fourth check and balance, which is not a branch of the federal government, that people just seem to be ignoring, and that's the reason why the federal government has gotten so out of control. People don't exercise this one. It's the American people. Recently, sadly, it was a recent development. There was an amendment to the Constitution passed that made it so that Congress was not allowed to give themselves a pay raise. Do you think Congress is the one that made this amendment to the Constitution? Would they really do that? Would Congress limit their abilities to pay themselves? No, and I'll tell you, they didn't. They're not the ones who passed it. It was passed by the states. That's right, the states passed it. Just like how the states ratified the Constitution, and the first 10 amendments to the Constitution were ratified by the states, not Congress, but the states. this recent amendment was ratified by the states, and we still have this power. So you can talk about trying to elect someone into office in the federal government to make changes in the federal government all you want, and I'm not going to say that I have no hope at all for going that route and being successful. I've seen Ron Paul get pretty close to being nominated by our completely circumvening party system. It might actually work. I don't know. We'll see how that works out here in a little while in Tampa. But if that doesn't work, I want to make sure that everybody understands that we still have the power to modify the federal government by passing amendments ourselves. The procedure is pretty simple. You just draft up an amendment and you get your state legislature to ratify it. And then you send it off to other state legislatures. It's a grassroots thing. You have to have it ratified by, I think, 37 states right now in order to pass an amendment to the federal Constitution of the United States. So our lack of use of this power is the reason why the federal government has gone wild. And when I say gone wild, I'm talking about the way that they come up with an idea of how the entire nation should be run, instead of allowing the states to run themselves and have power over themselves. An example would be marijuana. There are several states that have made it legal for medicinal use, but the people in those states who are following the laws of their states are being persecuted. They're being put in jail, and that's not right. That doesn't make any sense. If the people who drafted the Constitution found out about that, they would be pissed. Another example, gay marriage. Why does this have to be an issue that the national government should decide for all the states? We have several states who have passed legislation that make it legal for gay people to marry each other. That's great. You know, they can go to those states and get married. Personally, I'd like to see that in every state. The correct process to go through to make that happen would be to have every single state make that legal. If we reach a point where there are 37 states or more that have it legal, why not ratify an amendment to the United States Constitution if you feel that it's important enough to where every state should be forced to obey a federal mandate telling the state legislatures what laws they're allowed to pass? I think that's the wrong way to go. But I mean, if you're really an activist, you would go to those states that are against it and campaign for change. But I mean, that's just the way I feel about it. I am a libertarian, so I ascribe to the ideal of non-aggression. You should not initiate force against someone to encourage them to behave the way that you hope they would behave, even if you think that they're behaving incorrectly. Um, as long as they aren't interfering with your rights, you shouldn't have a right to impose your will on them. Um, but, anyways, I just wanted to make that clear that we do have that right. Um, and we should be using it more. And you have the power to make the change that you want. So, come November, and I say November because even if Ron Paul does not receive the GOP nomination, you can always write him in. But come November, if he doesn't get enough votes to become a president, and we can't change that system from the inside, remember, all you have to do is pick something out about the federal government you don't like, write an amendment to the Constitution that would get rid of that thing about it that you don't like, and start showing it to people. Get people to improve on your idea. This is what democracy is really actually all about. You show it to people, get people to give you their ideas. You get it to the point where it's an idea that just about everybody you show it to agrees with, and then you take it to the legislature and you show it to them, the state legislature, and you tell them, I'd like you to ratify this amendment. You get politicians from your state involved. I mean, that's what our system is designed for. I have a state legislature that has a representative that represents a part of my city. Not the whole city, but just a part of it. So when I go to him and say, I have an amendment to the U.S. Constitution that I'd like you to support, and I have the support of everyone in my neighborhood behind this, it's really hard for that particular representative to say, no, I'm not going to support it. Because you have the power to get the backing of everyone in your district and then go to your representative and say, I want you to back this. Everybody in your district wants you to back this. You don't have the right not to, because everybody that you represent is behind this amendment. And then when they present it in the state legislature, hopefully you will have also gotten the word out to people throughout your state about this amendment, whatever it may be, and it gets ratified by your state. And this can happen, as long as it happens in 37 states, that amendment becomes law. So if this doesn't happen this year, if we don't end up with a president who wants to return to the Constitution, just remember why you wanted to elect that president, and make a laundry list of the stuff that you would have liked to see him change about the federal government, and just start ticking them off one by one. Eventually we can rein this beast in and transform our government back into what it was designed to be.